coming to introduce our speaker, but she's going to be a few minutes late. Let's do, and she'll introduce Michael Lane?
Michael Lane, yes.
Michael Lane, beautiful. What does it mean?
It's actually biblical. So King David, his first wife was Michael or Paul, and that's where that's from.
I knew I'd read it somewhere. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah.
So thank you. All right, opening song, Dave, and then Pledge of Allegiance, Rachel, the world traveler. Honor to have you with us again. And then Bobby's going to do the prayer, and then we'll talk about business hours. So everybody please stand.
I think you remember this one. My country, tis of thee. My country, tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we humbly bow in your thanks for our blessings, for the bounteous blessings thou hast given us, for this beautiful weather and the opportunities we have of being here in this meeting, for the opportunity of service to be in this community. We ask that thou might help us to serve thee more diligently, help us to find ways and avenues to increase our service and activity. Bless us with thy strength and health, and bless this food that might nourish and strengthen our bodies. And with those that are in this club, that they might come and join us and continue to participate in fellowship. We ask for blessings on our speakers, that they might be able to present what they need. And with our leadership, with our county government, our state, federal government, bless them with wisdom and knowledge. These are our prayers, and we ask in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. Items of business. Richard's going to cover Red Lobster. If you do this Friday, I'll do next Friday.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care of that. Other items of business. Dave, please.
I don't know whether you saw it or not, but our distinguished member, Ren Ashbrook, was on KSL TV last night, showing off just some of his memorabilia in small part, but very, very impressive.
We'll
And,
talk about
just
that,
like to mention
Try to
that.
take my mug off of there.
Could you tell us what you were showing exactly?
My friend Reed Moon invited me to bring some scriptures and other things involving the prophets, presidents of the church. And we took a whole lot more than that over there, but that was what the media was picking up on, is that part.
Were you on the news or what special?
Yeah.
It was on the news, I guess.
10 o'clock news.
I didn't see it, I heard about it, so, yeah. We were busy till
I thought maybe you were in trouble.
14 hours yesterday. 9 in the morning, setting up till about midnight, so.
Wow.
It was under glass and everything.
Some was.
Yeah.
Some of it was under glass, and some was not, so we had to kind of, stand by things.
Did you have many visitors?
Oh, yeah, we had well over 1,000 people came.
Did you?
Oh.
Yeah, it was huge, yeah,
Wow.
especially after work last night, it went on and on. But it was, they trickled through during the day. We opened up at 1, took a few hours to set up. And we were closed at 9, but it still took a while to get it all.
Was that at the station? Is that where it was? Where was it?
It was over at Riverwoods. There's a kind of an art gallery there that's about to be turned into a store. Ronnie owns Riverwoods, New Skin fame. And he's about to put a store in there because I think that's the last real estate that's not rented out. So Reed and I thought we better get this done, and we're going to do it. We've done several of them in the past, and we've done 4 or 5 are playing back too, so we worked together pretty well. So we thought, well, let's do one on the scriptures. So.
Who was the compadre that was also featured? I didn't get his name and what his background was.
Who was what? I'm sorry.
The other person who was featured with you.
Reed Moon. Mm-hmm.
Reed Moon?
Mm-hmm. He moved up from Dallas. He moved up from Dallas 2 years ago. And he been over there at Riverwood since then.
It's been some pieces too.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's got a collection mostly of Bibles and things like that. But he started to spread out on some other things. It was fun. We enjoyed it, you know.
GLDS too?
Yeah. And it's fun to share things. I think both of us never grew out of kindergarten, so, you know, show and tell.
Very, very interesting.
But thanks, yeah.
Wow.
I wish they'd given you more time.
Well, they were there for quite a while, but you never know what they're gonna use or if they're gonna use anything, so. I didn't get to see Channel 5. My wife saw it. She got home and saw it.
Did she
We got
record,
some lunch, right?
did she record it?
I doubt it, but we can probably find it, you know.
Maybe an online clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, beyond KSL.
But thanks, it was fun. I might mention that I've been asked to do it as well for 4th of July for Colonial Day, so that'll be the next big one, and we'll.
Did you tell them you can't do it because you have a pancake? Oh, whatever.
Where do they do that? Where do they do
I
that?
told them if they come to the Balloon Fest and eat a pancake, that I'll do it.
Where do you do that?
It's gonna be at the Sierra, they moved everything, you know, Colonial Day's over there now, for them, so. Janelle Pugmire's, her husband's in charge of it now this year, from the Daily Herald, so. Working with that, so it should be fun.
It's
Now,
awesome.
also should announce that Channel 17, Zach is here as our guest photographer, if you want, telephotoist. And they're going to be covering this on a regular basis here, so we'll put our program on their programs. When will that start, Zach? Any idea?
Michael Ann, you'll be our first famous.
Are we operational already on Channel 17? Is that fully operational now?
Yes.
Golden Bears, as I would tell our students.
I can't hear you. Oh, YouTube first?
And then you'll be on the channel.
Oh,
Okay, any other business? Bob and I and John are gonna stay after a few minutes to talk about the breakfast. We will be giving out assignments, so please be monitoring your computer and don't delete my name like some of you have for assignments I've passed out. Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I do have a-
he's one of them.
I do have a comment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm gonna run this by you. What would it be if I assigned each one of you to a specific responsibility at the breakfast? And then it's your responsibility to get it organized and find volunteers to kind of help in that area. For example, the cooking, or the serving, or the putting up and taking down. Any thoughts on that?
Everybody has to help put up and take down.
Well, that's true, but I mean, one person ought to be assigned to that, and then that person communicate with us and everybody participate. But at least we know somebody's assigned to that.
I like the idea, and my family will be there and we will help, so.
I expect all the families to be there, but
in that regard also, the newspaper is coming out in June with the article that I submitted to you.
Oh, good.
And it's giving your telephone number.
oh geez.
Better than mine.
Block.
Your picture and your telephone number,
Sure.
and it has they're gonna run two articles. This one that we submitted to them, and then a later follow-up about what Kiwanis does.
Sue.
So it's gonna be a two-part situation.
Great.
for 4th of July.
Thank you for doing
And
it.
there's no charge.
Wow, nice job.
That's outstanding.
Okay, Brent, you're up. You don't have to get up. You can sit there and do it if you want.
Stuff's over here. Gotta get up. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy getting back to Kiwanis. Just a little breather between now. This is May 2nd. Yesterday was a law day.
Can you hear him?
May Day parades, I guess, in some areas of the world. Today is the anniversary in 1611 of the King James Bible. It was published for the first time in London by printer Robert Barker. And I want to talk about that a little in a minute. A couple other events events that took place on this day. In 1863, Stonewall Jackson was shot by his own men by accident after Chancellorsville, a great victory, one of the greatest victories that Lee and Stonewall had. Unfortunately, he succumbed to pneumonia 8 days later. I used to own a letter from Robert E. Lee back in those starving days when we had to sell it, but I wish I still have it. I can tell you about it. It was a letter of Robert E. Lee's written to his son, a fellow general in the Confederacy, Fitzhugh Lee. And it said that this was probably Lee's greatest battle up to this point in the war, victory. And he said, any victory at such a cost is not worth it. And that was the loss of Stonewall. By accident, being shot by his own men, he came back from looking at a little battleground. It was a sad way to go for a great general. You all know how Stonewall got his name. He was at the first battle of Bull Run outside Washington, D.C., and he held his ground. Confederate women. Somebody said, look, there's old Jackson standing there as a stone wall. So that picked up in the first battle of the war. Continued until he died at Chancellorsville. Became the first real hero and martyr of the Confederacy when he died in 1863. And Chancellorsville emboldened Lee to attack the North a second time. He tried one time the year before at Antietam, which was going to end the war. Long story, but interesting one. Won't tell it. But bloodiest single-day battle in American history, still Antietam. And that led to the second attack up north a year later, after winning Chancellorsville, even though he lost to Stonewall, against Gordon Meade. And Meade won the battle of Gettysburg. It was 3 days long, a lot bloodier, but it was 3 days long. In 1906 on this day, the closing ceremony of the Intercalated Games, the first as such in Athens, Greece, took place. 1918, General Motors acquired the Chevrolet Motor Division from Delaware. And 1920 on this day, the first game of Negro National League Baseball was played in Indianapolis. I would say that my favorite baseball player is Mickey Mantle, and I collect a lot of stuff I did over the years. Grew up with the M&M boys, and it was fun, kind of fun, maybe a Yankee fan. It was Satchel Paige, a Negro League player that knocked the ball farther in Yankee Stadium on an off game because he wasn't Major League. Then did my hero, Mickey Mantle. Quite a player. So the Negro League was good. It got started, but there was, as you know, 1947 before the racial barrier was broken with Jackie Robinson in baseball with the old Brooklyn Dodgers, where they moved to Los Angeles. 1945 on this day was the fall of Berlin. The Soviets came in, marched in, and took over Berlin at the end of the war. They hoisted the red flag over the Nazi Reichstag building. Hitler had already committed suicide, supposedly a couple of days earlier. If you watch the History Channel like I do, it's now in question. But at any rate, that's the story. That's the official story.
The question whether he committed suicide or not, or what?
Yeah, well, the question is whether he did escape with Martin Bormann and a few other people down in South America. Yeah, well, I know that sounds far-fetched, but watch the History Channel. It's kind of exciting. I thought the same thing originally. 1952 on this day, the world's first ever jetliner, the de Havilland Comet, made its maiden flight from London to Johannesburg, South Africa. And Tennessee Williams on this day, 1955, wins the Pulitzer for Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Got a signed copy of that. That was a great production. 1969, the British ocean liner QE2, Queen Elizabeth II, departed on her maiden voyage to New York City. In 1972, in the early morning hours, a fire broke out at the Sunshine Mine. Those of us remember Kellogg, Idaho, killing 91 miners. Chernobyl took place this date in 1986, and I think we're still not living there, as I understand. It's been over 30 years ago. This date in 2000, Bill Clinton, President of the United States, announced that accurate GPS access would no longer be restricted to the U.S. military. And that opened it up for the rest of us folks, okay? GPS got one. And in 2012, the pastel version of the Scream by Norwegian painter Edvard Munch sold for $120 million in New York, setting a new world record in 2012. And how can we leave out that we finally got Osama bin Laden on this day? In
On this
2011.
day?
Mm-hmm. So there were other births and deaths on this day. Catherine the Great, I brought her huge document before, so I didn't bring it today. Was born on this day in 1729. Elias Boudinot, American lawyer, politician, and 10th president of the Continental Congress, technically the United States, before the Constitution was born. John Andre, the spy, with Benedict Arnold, who was hung in 1750, was born on this day. He was hung in 1780. Theodor Herzl, a great Jewish Austrian philosopher, was born on this day in 1860. And let's see, there's a lot of others, and I'm going to forget about them here. Well, I know that it was on this day that when a man more powerful than the president died. I'll pass this around, it was small enough to bring it down. This is J. Edgar Hoover. And
He died this day?
yeah, and that was a 1974. And when I was a kid, he was the most powerful guy in the country. I remember when I entered the Army in '69, went down to Fort Ord, they asked us immediately if any of us were related to government officials, or to generals, or admirals, or people like that. I guess they wanted to, take care of those that were closely related to those people. We had one guy from Salt Lake City raise his hand. His name was Hoover. He claimed to be a direct relative of J. Edgar, and that sent chills through everybody at the time. When Nixon was president, Nixon was afraid of Hoover. He made that publicly known. Harry Truman had said something about it when he was president, because they had the goods on everybody. And he ran it as his own private police organization, as many of you know, it was a list of horrors. Although he was considered a great hero at the time when he died, we just mostly remembered him as a man that wore a dress off duty. Other things. But anyway, Melvin Purvis, who that's inscribed to, was the guy that got Dillinger, and was almost immediately drummed out of the service of the FBI because he outshone his boss. And so I had to pick that up at auction when it came up. Inscribed by Hoover to Melvin.
It must have been expensive, wasn't it? Purvis was very famous.
What's that?
It must have been expensive when you bought it. Purvis was very famous.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
knows about him.
Yeah, I was amazed I got it, but it was a sleeper. I got it fairly cheap. Yeah, I just thought, man, I gotta get this. Sometimes knowing a little history helps, sometimes it hurts. I've been doing a lot of basketball lately, and I brought the signature of Elgin Baylor, those of you who remember. Elgin Baylor, a great player, still alive, born in 1934. He's an American retired basketball player, coach, executive, played 13 seasons for the NBA. Minneapolis, Los Angeles Lakers appearing in eight NBA finals. And those of us that are wishing on our Jazz, hope they continue along the road. So, amazing game the other night. Baylor was a gifted shooter, strong rebounder, and accomplished passer, renowned for his acrobatic maneuvers on the court. He regularly dazzled the Laker fans with his trademark hanging jump shots. This is pre-Michael Jordan. He got it in the air. He was the #1 draft pick in 1958, and the NBA Rookie of the Year in '59, and an 11-game NBA All-Star. He was regarded as one of the game's all-time greatest players. Anyway, he's still around. He coached for a while, and is still popular among basketball fans.
He's as old
And then I just wanted to zero in on the King James Bible a little bit. It was for years, the English Bible was subject to a lot of wars and fights and so on. And what the Word of God was a very emotional thing, still is. But we finally settled on an authorized version on this day. It was published in 1611, and that was a an amazing feat. I think I may have shown you some of this before. This is I do have a complete First King James, but I didn't bring it because it's too heavy. But this is the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books. And if you were to see the King James that came off the press, and this is one of those that came out that day, it didn't start out with it had a title page, which I don't have, but it started out with a genealogy. And, you know, I guess the 55 scholars that met for several months and decided on what the Word of God should be for King James, who was a religious man, even the King of Scotland, James IV of Scotland, James I of England. He wanted to settle all this warfare between Protestants and Catholics that had been going on in England for years. And at any rate, they thought before you get to the scriptures, you got to know who it's written for, okay? And so they start with God. It's got Adam and Eve, Cain, Abel, and Seth. Got Enoch down here, and Enos is lying down here, and everybody that's mentioned in the Bible, the main characters anyway, are listed as they fit in with the scripture reference. Of course, this is Adam and Eve in the garden with Eve partaking of the fruit here, and death is laying down here. It's interesting the way they portrayed it. Oh, and on the second page, you get to the boat of Noah's, you know, finally, on the bottom. The third page, you get to the strange building.
Does it show Ham, Shem, and Japheth and their descendants? Is that what it shows?
Yeah, it's got those that are mentioned in the Bible. They're the father and the son. They've got those where it was handed down. So the third page had the tower, okay, where all the languages were confounded. And this goes on for 34 pages.
Really? The genealogy.
Genealogy. It starts with God, it ends with Christ, New Testament. And then you get into the scriptures. The big words, the first book of Moses, kind of called parenthetically Genesis. It's kind of the small terminology there. So, if your hands aren't too bad, I'll pass this around.
Yeah,
They are. I'll just pass it around. Is this an original?
Yeah, huh?
This is not a copy.
No, this is the original.
What does something like this work?
1600?
I have no idea. I got it a long time ago. What's that?
1600?
1611. So you're looking at the pocket version of the King James Bible. Came out on this day.
Those are the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
1611. What's that?
First 5 books of the Old Testament? Is that
Yeah.
what you're talking
Kind of took it. Yeah.
Wow. That is phenomenal.
Isn't that amazing?
What kind of paper is this used?
It's kind of what we call wool paper. It's kind of a cloth
Is it?
paper. And that's why it's preserved as well as it is. Yeah.
Does this indicate that Christ was of the house of David?
What's that? I'm
Does
sorry.
this indicate that Christ was of the house of David?
Yeah, because it runs his genealogy down through David here. Yeah. There's got all the generations and things. I want you just to see that because that's just a fragment of the original.
Astounding, but
Big one at home, but it's too big. This is a book that belonged to. I never shown this one before, but I thought I'd end with this. This is a book that belonged to King James, and this is
Really?
yeah, it's a prayer book. And this belonged to him personally because it's got his coat of arms. So this is from King James's library, okay? And
This
that's
is
his
an original.
coat of arms, yeah.
This is the original.
Right, it's an original. This is a book of prayer, common prayer. This is 1613, so this is 2 years after his crew brought out the Bible.
Would that be an Anglican?
Kid,
Would that have been?
What's that?
Which kid did you sell to get this?
I don't know, we had 9 kids, so that's
Hey, Brand,
But,
would that be a publication of the Anglican Church, or who would have published?
yeah, it was put out by Church of England. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I forget if Robert Barker, who published the Bible, is the same. Yeah, Robert Barker, same printer, so it was the Bible.
I know you don't usually tell this, but about what is the value of that book?
You know, honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't followed it. I got so much crap. I'm sorry, but I don't have time. I don't have life enough. Follow that. Someday my kids can tell you. The things they don't hold the DI. I've got a lot of people waiting at DI. You know.
Are you willing to adopt any of those?
Kids, they don't want it. At any rate, I wanted to show you this. I've never shown this before, but 2 years later, actually a year later, they started working on it. They decided to do a little smaller version of it. This is known as the quarto. This is the first small one of the King James. I've never shown this before.
An original.
It's original. It's 1613.
Is that the whole Bible then?
But you'll notice that they still have the genealogy.
It's a 34 pages.
It's still in it, but it's smaller now. And it was earlier, after, it was just within a couple of years after this, that they were, the printers were able to talk the king out of having to put this genealogy in. So they took it out. It saved them a lot of pages of printing. I think it's too bad, you know, because it really saved a lot of time. I noticed in recent years, some of the churches are starting to refer to that again, put it back in. So in some of the newer Bibles, Christian Bibles. And then finally, we did do the moon thing yesterday. Among the many things on LDS history that didn't just deal with scriptures that I brought was one I don't know if I've shared before, but this is the $100,000 check from Jesse Knight that saved the church. Okay?
Really?
Refer to Jesse Knight. Everybody know her?
In that day?
All right, well, this man could afford to write a $100,000 check in 1901 to the president of the church, Lorenzo Snow, who was attempting to try to figure out what the Lord wanted to do to save the church because it was going under, okay, financially. That's because of the raid, polygamy raid, where they took, and I had some original documents on that too. We could have been here all day, and I need to stop this so I get a speaker. But I just wanted you to see it. I'll pass it around. It's signed by the trustee and trust, Lorenzo Snow. You have to look, because he signed everything as president in pencil. He's the only president of the church I've ever seen that I cannot find an ink signature as president of the church. He signed a lot of ink before then, but not as president. In fact, I challenged the Don Schmidt, the church archivist years ago, and several others of the archive, show me an ink signature of Lorenzo Snow as president. And they keep throwing out many Snows, Lorenzo Snow, his wife, and others, but not him. So I asked his granddaughter a number of years ago, 30 years ago, when I got his prison journal, which is kind of fun too. I asked her, I said, well, how come you used pencil? And they said the family history says that Lorenzo Snow, being the oldest president of the church up to that point, remember he didn't want to be president, he wanted to pass it on, and the Lord commanded that he take the reins in the temple. So he should take the same counselors, and you know the story, I guess. Anyway, the point is that Lorenzo Snow, she said, had a palsy in his hand, was causing him to shake, and the pencil didn't show the shakes as bad as the ink did. I got that from the granddaughter, so I think it's probably as good as any explanation. And there it is. Thank you for your time.
I'll do that one. Okay, introduction. Glad you made it. Thanks.
Private audience.
Thank you. Thanks, Brent. That was major.
Jesse and I had $100,000. Where'd you get it?
See you when we get here.
So our speaker today is Michael Ann Bradley, and she works with me at United Way. She's going to be talking about one of our new initiatives.
Mansion is now
She works in marketing and communications, but I feel like my plan knows a little bit of everything that goes on.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Thanks so much, Kelly. Yes, I've been at United Way about 5 years. I assume a lot of you know Bill Holterstrom. Who doesn't know Bill, right?
We like him.
Of course. How can you not like him? He's like a big teddy bear. As people don't know, it's a secret actually. If you get to know him, he's actually a teddy bear. And I call myself a nonprofit nerd because I love everything nonprofit. I run a nonprofit for fun in my spare time. And I do this for my day job, and I just love the community. And I'm really excited about this new thing we have. We're looking at mental health. And let me tell you a couple things that you may have heard about before. Oh, there goes that. This may not want to stay on. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Okay, so we're seeing this really interesting trend right now with teenagers and preteens. We're seeing this really sharp increase in anxiety and depression. So every year, the school districts do something called the SHARP survey, which those of you who are here from that will know about. It looks at risk factors and like drug abuse and like mental health among 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders, and kind of evaluates like what the trends are. And we're seeing here that the number of children who are feeling, sometimes it's hard to be like, okay, like are you depressed, right? Because like, what does that mean? So they ask these other questions that kind of like get at the problem a little bit indirectly. So asking students if they've ever felt so hopeless that they stopped doing activities for 2 weeks in a row or more. Not only is this trend going up, you also got to remember too that 2011's 6th graders are 2013's 8th graders, right? And so on and so forth. So not only are we getting an upward trend, also within each cohort, we're getting a little bit of an increase as well. Go down. Other things. As a clinical social worker at Utah County High School, so this article was written in December 2016. So he said from when school started in August till December, he had seen 285 kids at one Utah County School District alone who are experiencing severe anxiety and depression. And I'm talking like, so this is crazy, but on the ACT, which is what you do to get into college, your maximum score is a 36. There was a kid that he talked about who made a 32 out of 36 and couldn't get out of bed for a week because that was failure in his mind, right? That's crazy, right, to think about. And the really scary thing is that in worst case scenarios, right, we know where this leads. It can lead to self-harm or even suicide. There's other things that show that kind of the Mountain West region in general kind of has a lot of high suicide, and you may have heard that thing about like altitude and so forth. It's kind of hard to parse out exactly why this happens, but it's definitely, for me, it's really concerning. I don't have children, but I think about my nieces and nephews or the people, like the teenagers in my ward, or if you have grandchildren, right? Thinking about them kind of being like in this environment and like, what does this mean and how do we fix this and how do we help these kids? And like I said, it's kind of hard to parse out what the exact causes are. But I think it's important to note that like, no matter what the reason is, everyone can be equipped to cope with these difficulties more. So let me talk to you a little bit about what we think is a good way to think about this problem. Let's see. So one thing I want to say is that we're really interested in getting in early. So there's a lot of people who are doing really great work. You may have heard of Greg Hudnall and the Hope Squads. Those are, are you Greg Hudnall? No. I was like, it is you. Okay, perfect. So yeah, maybe you've heard of Greg Hudnall. I don't know. So I've been talking about you for a few months now without even knowing what you look like. So hi, nice to meet you. Greg does amazing work with the Hope Squads, and they've been incredibly effective, right, as you here who know him. We want to kind of go somewhere where no one else really is right now, and that's earlier. So 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I have a friend whose child he's always been kind of a difficult child, and they never quite figure out why. And finally, his teacher approached her, and she was like, he might be like depressed and anxious, and just gets so this kid is 8, right? And she was like, that's crazy. We took him to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician ended up putting him on Zoloft. And my friend says her kid just like changed overnight, right? And I'm not advocating that we need to medicate more kids. Like, I think that's a very difficult topic. My point simply is that no one thinks about an 8-year-old being depressed, right? But a lot of these things we see, the seeds are there like earlier. So we want to go early. We want to start as early as possible to kind of prevent some of this stuff. And one foundation to this is a thing called Maslow's hierarchy. Who here is familiar with what Maslow's hierarchy is? Okay, a few of you. So this is a tenet of psychology that basically says that there's things you have to have in place before you can get the next thing. So if you're not having your basic needs met, like food, water, and rest, it's going to be really hard to experience connection, for example. If you don't feel basically safe, you're probably not going to be able to really become confident and start achieving. And so we think that for the most part, people in Utah County are probably having most of their basic needs met. Most people have enough to eat. They have a place to live. Rest is a big one though for kids, right? Sometimes we don't realize why children are terrible is because they need a nap, right? But a lot of times this safety, this connection, and this competence are what are lacking in kids. So to give you like an example, my husband has been struggling a lot over the past couple of years with severe depression. He can't really work. He's trying super hard. He sits down every day. He's a researcher, a historian, and he tries to get his work done, and he just can't make himself do it. So we figured out, actually, after 2 years of this, that what's happening is that he's experiencing acid reflux at night, and so he can't sleep. So basically, for 2 years, he hasn't been sleeping, and so he's not becoming competent at all because he's not getting that basic need met. Does that kind of make sense? So what that looks like then, like having a child behave well or being able to overcome anxiety and depression is only possible when those foundational needs are met. So we know, for example, what we need to do is start providing more like formal support. So like Scott Snow here, right? He's a great example. He runs an amazing organization that provides incredible therapy and respite systems and interventions and information to the community. So there's different formal things like this we can do. We can do, we can have like these classes on emotional skills. We can create places where parents can connect better to their kids, connect better to people around them. And of course, we can provide safety. We can provide domestic violence shelters. We can provide crisis respite nurseries like Scott has. We can do all these kind of like formal things, and those are gonna be really important to building those foundations. But the other thing though is that sometimes we underestimate the value actually of what happens long before a kid ever gets into the system. So this is a thing from Intermountain Healthcare. This shows the percent of different factors that affect your overall health. So Intermountain Healthcare, they are in the healthcare business. This is doctors, this is medication, this is surgery. All that kind of formal stuff only affects 10% of your overall health. But your personal health, behavior, so how much you exercise and what you eat and all those kinds of things, that's the big bulk of it. And then some of it is like environment. So for example, we have kind of dirty air here in Utah, so you might have asthma because of that. And then genetics. You might just be genetically predisposed to a cancer, heart disease, or whatever. But a very, very small part, relatively speaking, right, is the actual formal systems. We can't discount this. Like when you need surgery, right? We can't just be like, oh, we'll just feel good about ourselves, right? So it's super essential. But if we can tackle all of this first, it'll make that final thing so much more effective, right? So what does that look like for mental health? What does that look like for our community? Coming back to Maslow's hierarchy. One of them is we want all parents from a very young age to start thinking about, how am I building competence in my kid? How am I building connection? How am I building safety? So for example, competence, sometimes are we actually conveying confidence that my child can do the thing that he needs to do? Are we helping my child, am I helping my child understand what competence is? Bill tells a funny story about his daughter. She was in first grade and she was just freaking out every day. She didn't want to go to school. And of course, as parents, you get really frustrated, like, why don't this kid behave well? Like, why don't they do what they're told? And come to find out, her teacher was pregnant that year, and Bill's daughter had read some kid's book about pregnancy and giving birth. And his daughter thought that when the teacher was going to give birth, she was going to be responsible for helping that baby come out, because no one else in the classroom knew how to deliver a baby except for her, right? And so she's this 6-year-old and she's freaked out about this, right? And so her competence, her definition of what competence is, was totally skewed, right? And it was causing her to do these bad behaviors that were just her expressing fear. Another one is connection. Does my child have friends and teachers? Yeah.
I ran across a very interesting piece that when we talk about self-actualization and
Yeah.
competence and acceptance by the environment.
Yeah.
A one sheet, I love you sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And the persons in the family give a one word or a very short
Yeah.
sentence
Yeah.
about the person and what they feel that he or she is competent of,
Mm-hmm.
and post that on the refrigerator
Mm-hmm.
or in a public place or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So that someone else feels like I'm worthwhile.
Cool. Yeah, I love that.
That's a very, very strong element.
I love that.
For a person to realize that, well, I didn't realize that I had those kind of qualities that somebody else thinks
Yes.
about me type
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Confidence in that respect is so strong
Yeah.
that it dissipates the aspect of I'm no good, nobody loves me,
Yeah.
I can't do anything type thing.
Yeah.
And have that posted so that they see that on a common, everyday basis even.
Yeah.
That's a very, very strong element
Yeah.
for building self-assurance.
Yeah.
Confidence.
I'm totally going to take that, if you don't mind, and use that as an example. That's perfect. Exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, that's so simple. It doesn't require you to like go to like a seminar to like learn that, right? But if you did that every day with your kids, right, or your grandkids, it's so transformative, right?
In a family situation, it's very, very strong.
Yes, exactly, right. And so you get connection, and then you get things like safety, right? Is my kid's situation reliable? Are my routines consistent? Can they know when to expect food and sleep and that kind of thing? You know, basically what we're really interested in is empowering parents to be the first line of defense, right? Like what you're describing, right? Before we ever get down to that red zone, how do we empower parents? How do we help parents know how to be the best kind of parents they can be? Here's kind of the crazy thing, right? Is sometimes it's kind of, there's a lot of awareness campaigns, and it's hard to know which ones are actually effective. But we tried this thing a few years ago called Everyday Learners. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's like a literacy campaign, right? And so we asked this question in 2011. If a child does not succeed in school, that affects the whole community, right? And we asked them this question. And so in 2011, only 30 people agreed to that. But we kept doing this kind of public campaign all through 2015, 2016, we started to see that number rise of people who agreed with that. Then we also saw an increase in third grade reading scores. Now, third grade reading is kind of like an essential marker that school districts use. If a child is on track in third grade, that basically means that kindergarten, first, and second were successful, and this kid is now going to be on a trajectory to be literate. If they're not literate in third grade, it could be really difficult to get them to where they need to be with reading skills. So we saw this correlation between people's belief in how early literacy matters and between the reading scores. So we got volunteers to work on this, we got the community to talk about it. There's a lot of power in, like you were saying, right, that really simple idea that you had. If we got every parent just to do that, right, imagine what could happen, right? And it's just that one little thing, but then imagine if you had like 10 other things, right, on top of it that they could think of to do in their lives and so forth. I think it would be really transformative. So it's kind of exciting because you guys are probably like the third group to hear about this. We're just barely starting to talk about it. I think it's going to make a huge difference. And we also want to make sure that we're really careful that we're not going to be recreating things. So Maybe I'm putting words in Greg's mouth, but I'm going to do it anyways. Greg has agreed to help our consulting psychiatrist, his name is Dr. Matt Swenson, to help kind of continue to craft this and to form it. We don't want to kind of overdo what anyone else is already doing. We want to help make kids resilient. I think resilient is a really powerful word because we can't always like stop people from not doing well in the ACT. We can't stop people from experiencing difficult emotions, but we can give them the skills to flourish despite that hardship. And yeah, I can even just say for my own self that learning the skills has been really transformative and has really helped me to flourish. So I'm hoping that what you'll do is you'll think about this Maslow's hierarchy, safety, competence, and connection, and think about it for your own self as a parent, as a grandparent. Think about it in terms of your own kids. Think, you know, am I feeling safe right now? Am I maybe behaving in a way that I wish I wasn't because I don't feel safe? Or is my kid behaving this way because she doesn't feel competent? Kind of using it as like a checklist for yourself and kind of thinking, okay, where can I plug in to make these things work better? Will help you a lot, and I think in your lives and the people that you care about. Any questions?
You
Yeah.
talked about skills that you were working with.
Yeah.
Are there specific skills, and how do you work with the parents on those skills?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I'm sorry. Tell me your name again.
Dave.
Dave. What Dave is describing is an example of one of those skills. A more complete list of that we're working on developing right now. We're playing around with the idea. It's so hard because you have all different kinds of people, right? You have millennials like me, you have people more like my parents who have a different way of interacting with information. We thought about perhaps using like an app where people could just really simply just ask them, how did you build competence in your child today? And then it'd be like, oh, I don't actually know if I did, or how do I do that? And they could click a link and be taken to like a resource somewhere. So they could kind of just learn at their own pace, on their own time. Is that a hand? Is it a hand? Yeah.
I've seen a chart that has a skills and interest
Yeah.
chart with a whole lot of variations. And they mark down if it's a skill, maybe it's a 3-level skill or a 2-level skill or a 1, or
Yeah.
it's just an interest.
Yeah.
And you can determine what a person's interests and skills are,
Yeah.
where their interests lie, that you can then help them to ensure those kind of skills that are they're increased.
Yeah.
Do you work with doctors, medical people to get folks the medications they need to complement what you do? I mean, a lot of these people just need
Yep.
to get the right medication.
Yep, totally. And like I don't want to discount that like that healthcare part at all, right? And that's where, so like for example, Family Support and Treatment Center, like we provide them funding, and we're going to try to get more funding for. I'm not making any promises, Scott. More fun, Michael Ann said, for people like Scott, right? So, but like one of the biggest problems we have right now in Utah County is that there actually aren't enough psychiatrists that exist. Like,
if someone needs to see a psychiatrist, it takes months to get in to see him.
Yep.
You can't get in.
Totally. And that's something else that we actually want to work on as well. And that's part of the reason why Greg and Scott are also involved, is how do we streamline that more?
Could you comment on that, Greg?
Yeah.
6 to 8 month waiting list.
Yep.
If you
Yeah, by then they're dead sometimes.
Yep.
I mean, the problems that you're addressing
Yep.
don't get met because they can't get the help they need. Isn't that
Yep.
true?
sometimes, yeah.
Yep. And so Steve Smoot, he's the regional president of EVRMC. He's also consulting with us so we can figure out how do we leverage this more. But this is the thing, is that if there aren't more psychiatrists, then there aren't more psychiatrists, right? So what do you do about that situation? How do you compensate for that weakness? I mean, we can start trying to get more psychiatrists now. It's going to be 10 years though before we have more. Yeah.
It's not just, it's connecting people to medicine, but also
Yeah.
to therapists and
Right.
counselors and
Right.
other support systems.
Yes, which is totally essential.
Right, so I think that's what we were saying is we want to be measuring things community-wide too. I mean, looking at how are some of these stats that she's representing now from this literacy initiative, how can we do the same thing in a few years and show similar results for mental health issues and people
Right.
being better connected to all of these kind of support systems and resources to feel like I'm more resilient or my kids are are more resilient.
Yeah.
We're better equipped to deal with the hand we were dealt.
Yeah, exactly. Better to build the hammer. That's exactly it, right? Yeah.
I found an interesting method to increase reading skills.
Mm.
When I was much younger and raising my family, I had 4 boys, and my oldest son was in the 4th grade at that time, and I thought, I'd like to learn how to speed read.
Yeah.
And I took a class at BYU. The class was very informational, and I thought, he could learn this.
Yeah.
So I taught him the skills essentially, and we had some of these children's encyclopedias that I used to buy in the stores. Maybe you remember those some years back. But anyway, it's anywhere you open it, it's the same level of reading.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept 2 charts. One of them was they were 20 by 80, 20 by 28 charts. And we would keep track of how fast he was reading.
Yeah.
And the second one was a bar type for how many books he read.
Cool. Yeah.
And he kept a journal, one of these accounting books, of
Yeah.
what he read, how
Yeah.
many pages it was, and so forth. He went from 150 to 200 to 500 to 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,200 words a minute reading. And he skipped a grade, by the way, in that process. But where he could see what his progress was. And in another situation, we teach that if you can speed read, you'll cut your time down 50, 60% for the time you spend reading for your studies than if you use the old way of plowing through dirt.
Yeah.
I don't want to interfere with your presentation, just
You're
one
good.
quick.
Yeah.
Did that help him in his life? You have a better life because you did that, you think?
Well, he was a millionaire, if that means anything.
That's kind of a big deal. No, well, I mean, so, but like,
Confidence and confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, but honestly though, like,
Gave
so
him
like,
complete confidence, and he just he breezed through things.
Yeah.
I
So
have another son who's a PhD, and he did the same thing.
yeah, we polled a bunch of teachers and we asked them like why is it the kids don't read at grade level? And I think like something like 90% of them said that it's because they just don't read enough. They just don't practice enough, right? And so that's where like having like a one-on-one volunteer working with you, or sometimes some kids don't even have books at home like to read. And so I think what you described, actually the research shows that it's so powerful, just that practice and practice and practice.
It's all key to that.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Everyday Reader program? Has that really improved reading? Do you have statistics on that it's really helped?
Yeah, so I think the biggest statewide one I have is one that I showed you, where we've gone from I think it was 72 to 80%, not statewide, sorry, countywide in reading. Our 3rd grade reading has improved. But even within our programs, so I'm thinking about, we have this program, it's really cool actually. The company Jive does this distance tutoring. They actually get on Skype or whatever, and they have the kid on the other end also get on Skype, and they read over the computer. And that program is actually seeing a better, more of a progress in kids' reading scores than even just being like next to the kid. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because kids like the screen, or I don't know. But so the programs that we're seeing, both micro are having an effect, but also community-wide, we're seeing an improvement. Yeah.
By the way, he read 1,000 books that year.
I had 1,000 books that year?
Yeah.
Oh, that were donated, you mean?
No, he went to the library and
Oh, whoa,
he
really?
brought home a wagon full of them.
Holy cow.
I think keep track of them, and it was
Yeah.
really interesting.
That's really cool.
1,000 books. Isn't that
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful.
Steve, I wish I was one of your children.
Seriously.
What?
I wish I was one of your children.
You'd be way ahead.
Yeah.
I've got 250,000 books I'd like to give away.
No.
They take up a lot of space.
Well, if they're kids' books, we'll take them. Okay, anything else? Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And thank you, Michael Lynn.
Michael Ann, yeah, and I'm super excited to have actually met you because
Yeah, my pleasure, thank you.
And honestly, the first thing a question I always get is always like, have you talked to Greg? Like every presentation I do.
People always,
You're doing amazing work.
well, it's not me, it's the kids. You know, the one slide that you showed,
Yeah.
Paul, who is actually a therapist from Wasatch Mental Health,
Yeah.
is, we put him at Lone Peak. Lone Peak had 4 years of suicides.
Yep.
And when we worked with the community and Rhonda, the principal, now this is their end of their second year with no suicides.
Yeah.
But the key is they've had over 100 referrals for help. And that's what the hope, we'll never be able to prevent all suicides, but what we can do is most mental illnesses begin between the ages of 10 and 14. Undetected, undiagnosed, untreated.
Yep.
And if we're really going to turn the tide overall, we have to determine that at a younger age
Yep.
to get that diagnosed, to help those families that are struggling.
Yep.
So thank you very much. That was great information.